Live with local comforts. Love community over commuting. Live in a home built by Glenveagh. Love where you live. Glenveagh, home of the new.
Welcome to Through the Front Door, brought to you by Glenveagh Homes. On this podcast, we'll be consulting a wide range of experts, from mortgage brokers and architects to interior designers and sustainability experts, who will be addressing those burning questions you've always wanted to know the answer to. This week, I'm joined by couple Jason and Laura Dunn, who bought a new build home in Balbriggan, County Dublin in 2021. I'm also joined by the new homes manager from Knight Frank, Riona McCaughey.
It is a simple process once you have that approval in place, and then it's just narrowing down your search and knowing what area suits you best in terms of what's important to you, really.
It is, it's brilliant. It's probably twice the size of the last house. Even the area as well is for walking the baby. It's nice and peaceful, and especially our location as well. It's quite quiet too.
From their experience to mine, we'll be sure to cover all the bases to put you, the listener, on your way to finding your perfect home. Jason and Laura, how are you?
Oh, good. Thank you very much.
How are you?
Good form? Did the babysitter turn up?
Yeah.
Crucial for this conversation. Crucial. Yeah. So, lads, first of all, congratulations. I mean, you've managed to buy a new home in a fractious market. Riona may or may not agree with me on that. We've come through a pandemic whereby construction has slowed to an all-time low. Demand has risen to an all-time high, in my experience. How did you guys find the buying process? Tell me, were you stressed?
Well, yeah, it was very stressful. I would have been heavily pregnant at the time with the baby, and we were selling the last house as well, which I think made it more stressful. So it wasn't just dependent on the new build, it was also dependent on the sale of the last house going through.
Very difficult to manage all kinds of emotions and purchasers and bidding, and then attempting to purchase a new house at the same time. So tell me a bit more about that experience.
So the house would have been put up in the market last August, the August previous. And then we actually put the deposit down with Knight Frank there in October. And then I think it was December, Glenveagh actually let us push the house out by, I think it was nearly 6 weeks we pushed it out to make sure both of the contracts actually signed on the same day. But the build up until the contract signing was quite stressful, because we never thought, we could never be 100% clear that we were going to get the house, because it all depended very much on the sale of the previous house.
So you're managing all kinds of expectations on both sides. So in fact, you're second-time buyers technically, but you bought a new home, right?
Yeah.
So what made? And were you coming from a new home, or were you coming from a second-hand home?
No, so it was a second-hand home. So the amount of work that had to go into it, and there was still a lot of work. So when obviously we knew we were expecting the baby, we wanted a new house, but wouldn't go down the route of an old home again, because there's just too much work involved in it, and we wanted everything fresh when we came into it.
Well, you also wanted it to be A-rated, I'm sure. I'm sure you were looking for a good building energy rating as well. You know, was that your primary reason for purchasing a new home? You know, airtight, warm, everything working, brand, as you said, fresh and new.
Yeah, it definitely would have been one of them, looking obviously for a more energy sufficient home, and warm obviously for the baby was one of the main things. Obviously the older houses are
very cold.
Yeah, very cold and sometimes damp. So and then as well, the location, we have family out here as well.
Well, actually, that was actually going to be my next question. You know, did you have to push far outside your the community that you were already in to find this new home?
We're 35 minutes from where we were living previously, so we family out here, and we still have family the other side, but it's only 35 minutes away, and we're directly on the motorway. So the motorway is literally just 2 minutes from the house, so it's actually not that bad of a drive. So you're kind of a midpoint between both families, so it's not too bad.
And did you choose Balbriggan because of the price level? Was it affordable for you? Is that the reason? And did you research elsewhere and just find that it was out of your grasp?
We'd actually looked at Dunshaughlin as well, but his sister had moved here just a few months previous. So that's one of the other reasons why we wanted to actually come out here, just so we'd be close to family.
Well, yeah, very important when you've got a smallie, very, very important. And in terms of choosing the home that you've bought, which obviously is a Glenveigh home, were you lucky, do you think, to be able to buy a new home? Because you hear constantly nowadays, and I mean, I get phone calls about it all the time, young people who are really desperate to buy a new home, and because they actually have access to the Help to Buy scheme as well, which I don't think applied to you guys, but they're finding it so difficult to even get their names on a new homes list. Yeah,
to answer that, actually, we were quite lucky. Originally, we didn't want to buy until the summer phase, but we rang Knight Frank just to actually ask the question, and it just so happened there was none at the time. There was going to be some houses coming up in a couple of months' time, but then these two actually came up. So I think we were actually quite lucky that we literally just got in there to get the home, and it was good timing as well.
Well, you were lucky, take it from me, because when something just turns up for you and your name is in the right spot, I'm sure Riona will agree with me on this, or if a cancellation comes through and you're next on the list, it's just like happy days. Would you have any, Riona, we'll talk about that in a minute, but would you have any advice, Laura and Jason, for anybody who's starting to look at the buying process? Is there anything that you guys might have done differently? Bearing in mind you had a lot to, you had a lot of balls to juggle in the air in terms of selling your own house. Would you do it differently? Would you have bought a new home first time round, perhaps?
If we're to do it differently, I'd say just obviously getting everything in order, from speaking to a financial advisor well in advance, and not just waiting until a month or two before you actually want to buy a new home. So our situation, it would have been quite rushed. Now, we were just lucky that it all came together for us. Anything differently?
Yeah, just kind of the financial advisor, definitely.
Yeah.
Well in advance, a good year in advance, maybe before you can start looking at homes, just so you know where you stand and what you could afford, what's affordable.
And also the period of time that you have by the time, for drawing down the mortgage, etc.
Exactly.
Can I ask you one question here, which I'm very curious about now? If you were to turn back the clock, would you have bought a second-hand home in the first place, or do you think you should have gone for a new home first time round?
Don't actually regret buying the first house, because at the time it wasn't recession times, but the housing market was actually quite affordable prices right then, so made a profit on the last home, and then with the renovations and stuff like that, so it actually allowed us to put a big deposit towards this home, which the more deposit you have, the less interest obviously you pay.
So it gave you a good leg up. And can I ask you, are you loving your new Glenveigh home?
Yeah, no, it is. It's brilliant. It's probably twice the size of the last house. Even the area as well is, for walking the baby, it's nice and peaceful, and
good.
Especially our location as well. It's quite quiet too. So
smashing, absolutely smashing. And tell me this: do you put on the heating at all?
Lately, not really.
Not really, no. And even if you do put it on, it's an
2 hours or something a day.
I'm very, very envious of anybody living in an A-rated home. I have to say, it's absolutely the only way to go, really, isn't it?
You can see a massive difference in the bills, as we have the PV panels as well on the house. So they make a bit of a difference when it comes to the electricity bill and stuff. So
fabulous. Well, I'm very, very happy for you. It's a good story. And I like the fact that you actually were second-time buyers first time round, and then got that deposit together, and the hefty deposit together to be able to forge ahead with a new home. I think in this day and age, it was a very, very smart idea. And well done to both of you. Thank you so much for chatting with me. I'm going to move on to Riona. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really well. You and I have spoken on a few occasions. Predominantly about new homes, and it's when I'm calling you, about existing clients of mine saying, jeepers, Riona, what have you got that I don't know about? Or have you got a cancellation? Or is there something happening? It's quite a different process, new homes, to traditional secondhand selling. It really is. And maybe you tell us a bit about that process, because most people come to talk to me because they don't understand the process. Purchasing a home, it's not the type of transaction that you do often. You might do it twice in a lifetime or thrice in a lifetime, but it's a very daunting. People they have great appetite to purchase, but when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, they don't actually know how that really happens.
The new homes process I think it's a lot smoother than maybe a secondhand purchase. I mean, as soon as you have, if you've the intention of wanting to buy a new house, it's checking your affordability and your budget. So that's the first step. Once you have that established through your broker or lender, it's then working out your overall affordability and in terms of locations where you want to live. So affordability wise, just unlike maybe a secondhand home, the house mightn't be fully complete. So Laura and Jason, I think you may have had the floors included. Not always the case in a new house purchase. So it depends again on the development. So factor those items into the overall affordability. Also, with new homes, there's incentives out there. The main one that you touched on is Help to Buy. You could get up to 30,000 in tax rebate for your property, and that's a massive plus for a first-time buyer trying to get on the property ladder and buy their first home. But yeah, once you have that approval in principle, that's you ready to go search for your property. That's the main item. We'll also, as agents, request solicitor details, your Help to Buy details, obviously, and ensure you just have the initial deposit. But the approval in principle is up there as top priority.
Yeah,
it's very critical in the process. Yeah, and once you have that, it's really just finding the location. Laura and Jason's happened fast in terms of that they chose the property, and the process then kind of kick-started right away, that they weren't really expecting. But yeah, it can be as soon as if we have the availability or like you said, cancellations there, just ensuring that you are registered with every development or every location that is of interest to you. So if that's happening,
it is fascinating. It is fascinating, because you'll often see signage, on the motorways or going into small towns, or even, in the outskirts of County Dublin, launching soon. And you make that phone call and they say, we're sale agreed on absolutely everything. We've deposits on everything. I mean, does that actually happen, Riona, that you're sale agreed in a day, or, you've got deposits in a day for new development?
Yeah, well, if you're actively looking, you won't miss out. If you're actively out there looking in the market, you will have your details registered with either giving us a direct call, or going on the Glenveagh website, going on online property portals or our own website, and just ensuring that you are pre-registered. So that means that you won't miss out on any pre-launch. A lot of schemes now are doing pre-launches because the demand is crazy at the moment. So there are a lot of pre-launches, there's a lot of early releases, maybe ahead of a show house. And if you're registered, you won't miss out. So a lot of first-time buyers are kind of savvy in that respect. They will be registered for numerous schemes in order to not miss out.
Well, that's very good news. I just wanted to touch on Laura and Jason saying that two properties came up. They were registered, but from my understanding, that particular scheme was likely sold out. Tell me about the two properties that came up, because I think a lot of people just, they don't think to put their name on a cancellation list. And they just think, oh God, that scheme's sold out, so I just have to move on to the next one. But it's a lovely story to hear that something did turn up that was right.
Yeah, I think it was Jason that called me initially, or checked in with me again, and checked to see. I think you may have viewed the Birch originally, and then we had other properties come online. And again, that was a developer. A lot of the releases are in relation to Glenveagh, for example, and their build schedule. So they'll be released in terms of how the build schedule and completions are. And I think that was the case here. But we were coming to the end of, I think that was phase 2. So we were coming to the end of phase 2 there. So they were lucky, I suppose, in that regard, because it could have been another 6 months to wait on another unit to be released there. And it mightn't have been the house that they originally viewed either.
Yeah, I understand completely. And tell me this, actually, what is the name of the development that you guys bought in?
Yeah, it's Taylor Hill in Balbriggan.
Taylor Hill. Lovely. Yeah. And Riona, is there anything left in Taylor Hill?
No. No, I think, again, Laura and Jason bought kind of, was it the height of COVID or around that time anyway? I know your process was kind of throughout that year. So there was a lot going on, a lot of updates, a lot of communication in terms of the progress there on the scheme with stop and start with construction. But no, Taylor Hill is now finished. We will have an additional phase there, separate to where Laura and Jason are and the original Taylor Hills. But
do you want to give us a bit of information about that Glenveigh project?
Hopefully, I'm waiting just on Glenveigh to give me that information. So hopefully that'll be later on this year, probably next year.
And interestingly, okay, so potentially there's something coming along in the pipeline, which is an addition to Taylor Hill in Balbriggan. Thank you for giving us that information. Do people ask you when they call you, do they say, do you have a cancellation list? Can I go on a cancellation list?
Yeah, all the time. And I'd even offer that out. If we're sold out of free beds, semis, for example, I would offer out the fact that I can add your details to a cancellation list if I know their position and they are ready to go. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And then look, you as a new home sales agent, I know when you're talking to people, it's a very emotional process. And like you, I talk to people every single day and you get their whole life story. It's a very emotional sort of a process. And I think people hire me actually because I'm not emotional about it. I can, go talk to agents on their behalf and not be emotional. And we manage people emotionally and their expectations every day, which is really, really interesting. Is there any particular advice you'd give to a first-time buyer who's, say, for example, sitting on their website or sitting on their laptop this evening, who considering, and they're looking at the Glenveigh, website or Knight Frank? What should they do first before they talk to Riona McCaughey? Ideally?
Well, I'd always encourage them to give me a call, even initially, and I can then, first point of, like I mentioned at the start, is your approval in principle. You can't even really look at a property until you have that in the new homes market.
You can't go buying handbags with no money.
Exactly.
You can't go buying a house with no money either. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my first bit of advice. After that, it's location. Laura and Jason had the connection to the area, so that's fantastic if you know the area or have that connection. But if you don't, and a lot of people are registering now because of the lack of supply, they're registering for, say, numerous Glenveigh developments in maybe North County Dublin. So it's just ensuring then that you are choosing and narrowing down your search. So I always recommend go out to an area, drive around on a Saturday, on an evening, go to the local coffee shop, visit the nearby green, get a feel, drive through the development. If it's the existing phase, initial phase of the development, drive through the development, get a feel for the location. I have been there. I have been a first-time buyer and I know the process, so I can nearly put my, I understand their frustrations and their feelings towards buying a new house. And it can be stressful, but as soon as you have that approval in principle, just ensure that you are registered, reach out to an agent and they'll be willing to talk you through the process. It is a simple process. Like I mentioned at the start of the conversation, it is a simple process once you have that approval in place, and then it's just narrowing down your search and knowing what area suits you best in terms of what's important to you, really.
Yeah, I think it's very good advice, and it's very simple advice, and it applies across the board, whether this is new homes or secondhand homes. The advice is the same. Go and get a feel for the area, have a look at the community. Can you imagine yourself living there? Very likely you will. I'd love to be in a new A-rated home, I have to say. And Balbriggan is actually a lovely part of the country, brilliant for commuting into the city. Beach, trains, buses, motorways, and improving all the time.
Live with local comforts. Love community over commuting. Live in a home built by Glenveagh. Love where you live. Glenveagh, home of the new.